Rain lashes against the tin roof like 1,000 angry hands. Evelyn Parker stands on the broken porch, clutching a flickering flashlight. Her coat flaps wildly in the wind. In her pocket, a letter, heavy as guilt. Lightning reveals the rusted truck behind her. Inside, 5 children watch in silence, wide-eyed and pale. Thunder rolls across the Sedona hills, echoing off the red stones. Evelyn turns the key in the ancient door. The hinges groan. For a heartbeat, silence. Then a sound rises through the storm. A distant cry from the old well. It whispers her name. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Together, let's reach 1,000 subscribers so we can keep bringing you emotional, powerful stories like this one. A long, cracked road stretched through the red desert. The fading sunlight painted the horizon in gold and blood orange as a beat-up station wagon crawled between towering mesas, carrying everything a small family owned. Evelyn Parker drove in silence. Dust filmed the windshield, and the old radio whispered static. Beside her, Emily stared out the window, headphones idle around her neck. In the back seat, Michael scrolled through an old phone without signal. The twins, Ethan and Noah, argued quietly over a comic book. Chloe watched her reflection in the glass, whispering to her doll. A letter rested on the dashboard. Property transfer notice, Red Hollow Ranch, Sedona, Arizona. Issued by attorney Andrew Marlowe. After years of cleaning other people's floors, Evelyn never imagined owning a single acre. But the letter was clear. A man named Leonard Harrington, someone she'd barely heard of, had left her the Red Hollow Ranch in his will. The road narrowed. The car's tires crunched over gravel as lightning flickered across the horizon. A rusted wooden gate appeared in the rain, half collapsed beneath a leaning sign that read, Red Hollow Ranch. Part of it was burned. The rest was being swallowed by vines. Evelyn stepped out, her boots sinking into mud. The latch groaned as she lifted it, pushing open the gate to reveal a valley of dead grass and skeletal trees. In the distance stood a house that looked like it hadn't drawn breath in decades. Some inheritances are blessings, some are traps disguised as gifts. The family stood in the headlights, facing the ranch house. Broken shutters clung to cracked walls. The porch sagged under its own weight. Wind rushed through shattered windows, carrying faint echoes that shifted between sighs and whispers. Chloe gripped Evelyn's hand tighter. "Mom, someone's crying." "It's just the wind, sweetheart," Evelyn said softly, though when she listened, the sound did seem like weeping, far away and buried deep. The front door groaned open. Dust swirled in the beam of her flashlight like ghostly sparks. The air was cold, still heavy with the scent of wood and mold. Portraits lined the hallway, each pair of eyes seeming to watch them enter. Evelyn brushed her fingers along a table thick with grime. One photo still stood upright, a man in a suit holding a cane, his gaze cold and distant. On the frame was written, Leonard Harrington, 1952. She didn't know him, yet his face felt strangely familiar, as though he were waiting to see if she would stay or run. Rain intensified outside. Evelyn grabbed her flashlight and stepped back into the storm. The barn behind the house leaned sideways, its door half off its hinges. Inside she found broken tools, rotting hay, and a rusted lantern swinging gently from a beam. She stopped. In the mud ahead, footprints, 2 sets, fresh, leading toward the old well behind the barn. Her heart pounded. The vines that covered the well parted as she brushed them aside. The boards sealing it were warped and cracked, marked with faint scratches, letters maybe, but eaten by time. A sour, metallic smell rose from below. Every instinct told her to look away. But curiosity can be as strong as fear. Evelyn leaned closer. From somewhere deep in the darkness came a sound, faint, trembling, impossible. A whisper. "Evelyn." She stumbled backward, the flashlight falling to the mud. Its beam rolled across the ground, illuminating a strange symbol carved into the boards, a circle with an eye inside. The whisper vanished, leaving only the storm. Inside the house, Evelyn lit the fireplace. The fire crackled weakly, glowing orange against the cold. Her children huddled close, their faces drawn with exhaustion. "Mum, are we staying here tonight?" Emily asked quietly. Evelyn looked around. The roof leaked, the floor creaked, the walls seemed to sigh with the wind, but she had nowhere else to go. "Just tonight," she said. "We'll figure everything out in the morning." The flames flickered as thunder rolled above, making the house tremble slightly. In the corner, an old rocking chair swayed on its own, slow, rhythmic, steady. Some houses keep their memories buried. Others make sure you find them. Evelyn walked toward the chair. The air felt colder there. She reached out and touched the armrest. It stopped instantly. The silence that followed was heavy, pressing against her ears. Then, faint but real, came the cry again. Not the wind. Not the storm. Something else. Evelyn turned toward the window. Rain streaked down the glass. Outside, through the darkness, the shape of the old well stood waiting, like a wound that refused to close. "No one goes near that thing," she whispered. Michael nodded, pulling his siblings closer. The firelight danced across their faces as they sat in uneasy silence. Sleep never came that night. It waited, like the storm, for something else to begin. Evelyn sat by the window, eyes fixed on the well. Outside, the fallen flashlight flickered one last breath of light before dying completely. Thunder echoed through the canyon, rolling like a distant warning. The darkness of the Red Hollow Ranch swallowed everything whole. Morning arrived gray and silent. Mist crawled over the valley, turning the ranch into a ghost of itself. The rain had stopped, but everything was soaked, the earth heavy, the air thick. Evelyn stood on the porch, holding a cup of instant coffee that no longer felt warm. Her eyes lingered on the well. The coverboards were wet, darker from the night storm. For a moment she thought she saw a shadow move across them, but when she blinked, there was nothing. Inside, Emily tried to make breakfast using an old gas stove. Michael swept the floor, pushing aside layers of dust that revealed blackened wood underneath. Noah found a cracked horseshoe and held it up with pride, while Ethan recorded everything on a small camera he'd found buried in a box near the fireplace. The footage shook with every movement, capturing fragments of their first morning in the house. Their fragile sense of calm shattered when a knock hit the door. Evelyn froze. No one should have known they were there. She hesitated, then opened it a few inches. An old man stood outside. His hat was pulled low over his brow, coat damp from the mist. His voice was rough but polite. "Name's Walter Briggs. Neighbor from just down the trail. Saw some lights last night. Didn't think anyone would ever come back to this place." Evelyn exhaled slowly. "We just arrived. It's all a bit of a surprise." Walter nodded, peering past her shoulder into the house. His gaze rested a moment too long on the photographs along the wall. "A surprise it surely is. This ranch, it's got history." He stepped inside when she invited him reluctantly. Dust swirled around his boots, though he walked as if he already knew every creaking board. He noticed the letter on the table and the unfamiliar faces. "You're Parker's widow, aren't you?" Evelyn's chest tightened. "You knew my husband?" Walter's expression shifted, a flicker of guilt, or maybe fear. Everyone knew him, in a way. Hard worker. Good man. Shame what happened. Evelyn looked away. "They said it was an accident." "Maybe it was," Walter said quietly. "But around here, accidents, they tend to happen in the same places." His eyes drifted toward the window and the well beyond it. The words settled in like cold air. Evelyn followed his gaze. The shape of the well loomed in the distance, still and dark. "I heard something from there last night," she said softly. Walter's jaw clenched. "Don't go near it. Whatever calls from there, it don't mean you well." She wanted to ask what he meant, but he turned away, his attention caught by a noise outside. A bird startled from the barn rafters. He moved toward the back door. "You mind if I look around? Haven't seen this place in years." Evelyn followed him out of caution more than trust. They walked behind the house, boots sinking in the wet ground. Walter stopped before the well. He kneeled and brushed his hand along the boards, tracing the faint carvings. "Someone tried to seal it," he murmured. "Didn't do much good. The ground keeps breathing around it." He wedged his fingers under a loose plank. Before Evelyn could stop him, the board gave way, revealing the black mouth below. An odor rose immediately, metallic, wet, expired. Evelyn covered her nose. Walter shone his small flashlight inside. The beam slid over stone walls lined with strange markings. Then, scratches, deep ones. Evelyn's stomach turned. What made those? Walter's hand trembled slightly. Not what? Who? Further down, the light reflected something pale. Bones, at least 3 shapes, one smaller than the rest. Walter swallowed hard and reached down with a hook of wire lying nearby, dragging up a small dirt-caked object. He wiped it on his sleeve. It was a thin silver locket, smeared with rust but still recognizable. Evelyn's heart stopped. Her fingers traced the engraving through the grime. Jonathan Parker, 2002. Her husband's name, the date of his supposed death. Walter exhaled shakily. He found out something he shouldn't have. That's what my father used to say about people who crossed the Harringtons. They kept paperwork sloppy on purpose, made land disappear, made people disappear too. Bad blood runs deep on this land. Evelyn's throat tightened. Are you saying my husband didn't die in that crash? Walter looked away. I'm saying Red Hollow's got more ghosts than one. They recovered the well as rain began again, soft but steady. Evelyn's hands shook as she pressed the boards down. Every time her palms touched the wood, it felt as though the ground pulsed beneath her, faint, rhythmic, almost alive. Inside the house, Emily saw them through the window. Mom, what's going on out there? Nothing, Evelyn lied, her voice barely holding. Just fixing something. That night, the storm returned. Thunder rolled across the valley once more, though this time Evelyn didn't sleep at all. She sat by the hearth, staring at the locket resting on the table. Memories flooded back. Jonathan's last day, his smile, the call she never got to answer before the police arrived at her door. Every word spoken about his accident now twisted in her mind like a poisoned vine. Near midnight, footsteps creaked on the porch. Evelyn reached for the fire poker and stood still. A shadow moved past the window, darker than the storm itself. She held her breath. 1 second, 2, then silence. The front door shuddered slightly as if touched, then went still again. When dawn came, the tracks were there. Boot prints, large, leading from the main road straight to the well and vanishing beside it. Evelyn clutched the locket in her fist. Beneath the surface of fear, something new began to grow. Rage. This land had taken everything from her once. It wouldn't again. She looked out at the horizon as the morning light crawled across the mountains of Sedona. The Red Hollow Ranch had chosen her for a reason. The truth hadn't just been buried here. It was waiting to be unearthed. Morning arrived grey and silent. Mist crawled over the valley, turning the ranch into a ghost of itself. The rain had stopped, but everything was soaked, the earth heavy, the air thick. Evelyn stood on the porch holding a cup of instant coffee that no longer felt warm. Her eyes lingered on the well. The coverboards were wet, darker from the night storm. For a moment, she thought she saw a shadow move across them, but when she blinked, there was nothing. Inside, Emily tried to make breakfast using an old gas stove. Michael swept the floor, pushing aside layers of dust that revealed blackened wood underneath. Noah found a cracked horseshoe and held it up with pride while Ethan recorded everything on a small camera he'd found buried in a box near the fireplace. The footage shook with every movement, capturing fragments of their first morning in the house. Their fragile sense of calm shattered when a knock hit the door. Evelyn froze. No one should have known they were there. She hesitated, then opened it a few inches. An old man stood outside. His hat was pulled low over his brow, coat damp from the mist. His voice was rough but polite. Name's Walter Briggs, neighbor from just down the trail. Saw some lights last night. Didn't think anyone would ever come back to this place. Evelyn exhaled slowly. We just arrived. It's all a bit of a surprise. Walter nodded, peering past her shoulder into the house. His gaze rested a moment too long on the photographs along the wall. A surprise it surely is. This ranch, it's got history. He stepped inside when she invited him reluctantly. Dust swirled around his boots. though he walked as if he already knew every creaking board. He noticed the letter on the table and the unfamiliar faces. "You're Parker's widow, aren't you?" Evelyn's chest tightened. "You knew my husband?" Walter's expression shifted, a flicker of guilt, or maybe fear. Everyone knew him in a way. Hard worker. Good man. Shame what happened. Evelyn looked away. "They said it was an accident." "Maybe it was," Walter said quietly. "But around here, accidents, they tend to happen in the same places." His eyes drifted toward the window and the well beyond it. The words settled in like cold air. Evelyn followed his gaze. The shape of the well loomed in the distance, still and dark. "I heard something from there last night," she said softly. Walter's jaw clenched. "Don't go near it. Whatever calls from there, it don't mean you well." She wanted to ask what he meant, but he turned away, his attention caught by a noise outside. A bird startled from the barn rafters. He moved toward the back door. "You mind if I look around? Haven't seen this place in years." Evelyn followed him out of caution more than trust. They walked behind the house, boots sinking in the wet ground. Walter stopped before the well. He kneeled and brushed his hand along the boards, tracing the faint carvings. "Someone tried to seal it," he murmured. "Didn't do much good. The ground keeps breathing around it." He wedged his fingers under a loose plank. Before Evelyn could stop him, the board gave way, revealing the black mouth below. An odor rose immediately, metallic, wet, expired. Evelyn covered her nose. Walter shone his small flashlight inside. The beam slid over stone walls, lined with strange markings. Then scratches, deep ones. Evelyn's stomach turned. "What made those?" Walter's hand trembled slightly. "Not what? Who?" Further down, the light reflected something pale. Bones. At least 3 shapes, one smaller than the rest. Walter swallowed hard and reached down with a hook of wire lying nearby, dragging up a small dirt-caked object. He wiped it on his sleeve. It was a thin silver locket, smeared with rust, but still recognizable. Evelyn's heart stopped. Her fingers traced the engraving through the grime. Jonathan Parker, 2002. Her husband's name, the date of his supposed death. Walter exhaled shakily. He found out something he shouldn't have. "That's what my father used to say about people who crossed the Harringtons. They kept paperwork sloppy on purpose. Made land disappear, made people disappear too. Bad blood runs deep on this land." Evelyn's throat tightened. "Are you saying my husband didn't die in that crash?" Walter looked away. "I'm saying Red Hollow's got more ghosts than one." They recovered the well as rain began again, soft but steady. Evelyn's hands shook as she pressed the boards down. Every time her palms touched the wood, it felt as though the ground pulsed beneath her, faint, rhythmic, almost alive. Inside the house, Emily saw them through the window. "Mom, what's going on out there?" "Nothing," Evelyn lied, her voice barely holding. "Just fixing something." That night the storm returned. Thunder rolled across the valley once more, though this time Evelyn didn't sleep at all. She sat by the hearth, staring at the locket resting on the table. Memories flooded back. Jonathan's last day, his smile. The call she never got to answer before the police arrived at her door. Every word spoken about his accident now twisted in her mind like a poisoned vine. Near midnight, footsteps creaked on the porch. Evelyn reached for the fire poker and stood still. A shadow moved past the window, darker than the storm itself. She held her breath. 1 second, 2. Then, silence. The front door shuddered slightly as if touched, then went still again. When dawn came, the tracks were there, bootprints large leading from the main road straight to the well and vanishing beside it. Evelyn clutched the locket in her fist. Beneath the surface of fear, something new began to grow. Rage. This land had taken everything from her once. It wouldn't again. She looked out at the horizon as the morning light crawled across the mountains of Sedona. The Red Hollow Ranch had chosen her for a reason. The truth hadn't just been buried here. It was waiting to be unearthed. A black SUV appeared on the dirt road just after sunset, its headlights cutting through the mist like knives. The engine's growl echoed through the valley, drawing every eye inside the house to the window. Michael lowered the curtain slowly, his voice barely a whisper. "Mum, someone's coming." Evelyn set down the locket. Her hands trembled, but she kept her face calm for the children. The vehicle stopped beside the broken fence, and a man stepped out, tall in a dark coat, his expression sharp enough to slice through glass. He moved like he already owned the land. He knocked once, hard. Evelyn opened the door halfway. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for Evelyn Parker," he said, his voice smooth and cold. "I believe you're staying on my family's property." Her jaw tightened. This land was left to me. It's legal. "By a dead man's whim," he replied, smirking. "I'm Christopher Harrington, Leonard's nephew, and this ranch doesn't belong to you." He stepped closer, barely a foot from her face. "My uncle was sick, senile. He didn't know what he was doing. So, here's what's going to happen. You'll leave tonight, quietly, and we won't have a problem." From the corner, Walter Briggs stepped forward. "That's not how it works, son. You don't scare people off land that ain't yours anymore." Christopher's eyes darkened. "You again. Thought you were smart enough to stay out of this." Evelyn spoke up before Walter could respond. "I'm not leaving. My husband's name is tied to this place now, and I intend to find out why." Christopher's smirk faded. For a brief moment, something flickered behind his eyes. Fear, quickly buried by anger. "You shouldn't dig into things that are buried, Mrs. Parker. Some secrets kill." Then he glanced toward the well. His jaw clenched, a bead of sweat forming at his temple. "You opened it." Evelyn stared back, silent. Christopher's hand tightened into a fist. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" The tension thickened like smoke. Walter took a step forward. "You're not welcome here, Harrington. The law says it's hers now." Christopher's voice dropped to a low growl. "The law doesn't apply to the Harringtons, it never has." He pushed past Walter, poking Evelyn in the chest. "You think you can keep this place? Fine. I'll come back with papers, with proof. And maybe men who won't ask for permission." Evelyn didn't move. Her voice was steady, though her heart pounded. "Then bring whoever you want. I'm not going anywhere." Christopher leaned closer, his breath cold. "Accidents happen here all the time. Don't make yourself another one." He turned sharply, brushing against Walter's shoulder on his way out. The SUV roared to life, spinning gravel as it vanished into the dusk. For a long time, no one spoke. The only sound was the wind pushing across the land. Michael broke the silence. "Mum, who was that?" Evelyn didn't answer. She walked out onto the porch, eyes fixed on the road where the SUV had disappeared. The air felt heavy again, like the moment before lightning hits. Walter joined her, his face lined with concern. "He's trouble," Walter said, "just like his father was." They were both born thinking they could own anything they touched. "What does he want from me?" Evelyn asked. "Why not just let this place go?" Walter looked toward the well. "Because this land hides the things they can't let anyone find, and now that you're here, you've seen too much already." That night, the house felt smaller. Every creak in the floor sounded like a step closer. Evelyn locked every door, every window, even dragged furniture against the main entrance. Her children sat together near the fire, silent and pale. The storm came back after midnight, wind hammering the glass, rain striking in bursts. Evelyn stood by the window, clutching the locket as waves of lightning illuminated the valley. Then, through the sheets of rain, she saw it. Headlights far off, winding down the dirt road again. Her heart stopped. She held her breath, waiting. But the lights disappeared. No engine, no sound, just the wind. Walter's voice came from behind her. "You saw it too." He stepped out of the shadows, holding a rifle. "We can't wait for him to decide our fate. We'll be ready." Evelyn nodded once. "Tomorrow we start securing the house." The next day they gathered scrap wood, old nails and wire from the barn. Walter showed Michael how to board the windows tight. Ethan and Noah stacked supplies near the cellar. Evelyn checked the doors, breathing heavily from the work, her mind racing through every possibility. Around noon, a sheriff's patrol drove by, slowing as it reached the gate. Evelyn waved him down, hoping for reassurance. But the deputy avoided her eyes, tipped his hat, and drove on without stopping. Walter spat in the dirt. Figures. Harrington money still buys silence out here. When the sun dipped low again, Evelyn looked across the valley and felt it deep in her bones, the sense of being watched. The ranch seemed alive, breathing around her, the whispers from the well returning with the wind. Night would fall soon, and Christopher would keep his promise. The final boards went up on the doors as thunder began to echo from the canyons. Evelyn gathered her children by the fire. "Whatever happens, stay together," she told them. "No matter what you hear outside, you don't run, you hear me." They nodded, eyes wide and wet. Chloe clutched her doll tight. Walter stood near the doorway, rifle rested against his shoulder, gaze fixed on the window. If he comes back, it won't be to talk. Lightning flashed again, white against the horizon. The hills of Sedona glowed and went dark. Evelyn whispered to herself, "We survive tonight, and then we take back what's ours." In the distance, an engine started. Not one, several. The faint rumble of multiple vehicles climbing the dirt road reached their ears. The lights appeared, 4 of them cutting through the storm like approaching fireflies. Michael whispered, "They're here." Evelyn pulled her children close, her voice calm but fierce. "Downstairs. Stay quiet." Outside, the engines roared closer, headlights illuminating the front of the ranch like a stage. Tires skidded, doors slammed, footsteps spread across the mud. Then a voice shouted through the storm, recognizable, cruel. "Come out, Mrs. Parker, it's time to give Red Hollow back to the family." Evelyn's heart pounded as she looked toward the old well. The ground seemed to hum, as if it already knew what was waiting to rise. Rain fell in thick curtains over the valley, swallowing sound and light. The old ranch seemed to shrink with each flash of lightning. Evelyn counted 4 trucks on the property, black silhouettes against the trembling glow of thunder. Shadows moved behind the fence line, men with rifles, rain crawling down their coats like veins of silver. Inside, the fire trembled. Evelyn whispered to her children, steady but quick. "Down the passage now. Michael, take them. Go to the old well. Stay quiet." The twins hesitated. "The well? But do exactly as I say." Her voice left no room for argument. They obeyed. Only Walter stayed behind with her, gripping his rifle. "You sure about this?" he asked. "I'm sure that's the only place Christopher won't look." Outside, the men fanned out, their steps heavy in the mud. One kicked down the side door, another laughed low, mean. The sound sent a chill straight through her chest. Walter moved to the window, sighting down the barrel. "We hold them off as long as we can." The first shot cracked through the night. Glass shattered, wood splintered. Evelyn ducked and crawled behind an overturned table. Walter returned fire, his old rifle booming once, twice, echoing through the canyon like thunder answering thunder. "Where are the kids?" a voice outside barked. "Check the barn, check everywhere." Evelyn's breaths came fast. She could see their flashlights sweeping the interior walls, white light crawling like serpents across photographs and dust. Then she heard a sound that made her blood freeze, a voice calling her name, soft, mocking. "Evelyn. Come out. You can't hide forever." Christopher's voice. Thunder crashed again, closer this time. Window panes trembled. Walter fired once more and ducked down as a bullet tore through the frame inches above his head. "Go," he hissed. "Get to your kids." Evelyn hesitated. "Now." She sprinted through the hallway, ducking behind furniture, smoke thick in the air. The front door exploded inward. She glanced back, saw Walter firing again, saw one of the intruders collapse. Then muzzle flashes filled the room like fireflies in hell. She ran for the back door, wind and rain slapping against her face. The barn loomed ahead, and behind it, the dark shape of the well. As she reached it, a flash of lightning revealed her children huddled inside the old stone circle, rope ladder half lowered. Their faces were pale, eyes wide. "Down!" Evelyn shouted. "Go!" They didn't argue this time. One by one they climbed down into the dark. The smell of wet stone and rust grew stronger with every breath. Evelyn followed last, pulling the boards and vines back over the opening just as the sound of approaching boots filled the yard. Inside the well, the air was cold, damp, and broken by the smallest echoes, drips of water, whispers of fear. Chloe clung to her mother. "I'm scared." "I know, sweetheart. Stay quiet. Just a little longer." Above them, the world shook, shouting, gunfire, lightning, then suddenly a scream. A man's. Short, sharp, abrupt, then silence again. Michael looked up. "Was that Mr. Briggs?" Evelyn closed her eyes. "Don't listen." The silence stretched. The children's breathing was the only sound for a moment. Then another noise joined it. Slow, deliberate footsteps. Someone was walking near the well. Evelyn pressed her hand over Chloe's mouth and motioned for everyone to stay still. Drops of mud fell from the boards as someone stepped closer. The wood creaked above them. Then Christopher's voice came again, lower, deliberate. "You think you can hide under my land? You don't know what's buried here, Evelyn. What's waiting?" His tone changed, a tremor in it, fear mixed with fury. "You opened the well. You woke it." He kicked the boards but didn't remove them. The footsteps backed away. The rain softened to a whisper. For several heartbeats, there was only quiet. Then Evelyn realized something else. The well itself was vibrating beneath her palm, faint but real, like a heartbeat pulsing deep underground. A low hum crawled up the stones, echoing into her bones. Ethan whispered, "Mom." "What's that?" She shook her head, afraid to answer. A soft gust of air rose from below, impossibly cold, carrying with it a sound like wind through distant voices, or voices moving like wind. One whisper separated from the rest. "Evelyn." It wasn't Christopher's voice. It wasn't anything human. She held her children tighter. From above came a new sound, engines starting, doors slamming, shouting. Michael peered upward through the cracks. "They're leaving." Evelyn waited, not trusting what she was hearing. The trucks rumbled away, fading into the distance until only the storm remained. She exhaled shakily and clutched the locket that still hung around her neck. "Stay here," she whispered. She climbed partway up the rope ladder, lifting the boards carefully. Rain fell through the gaps, washing mud down the sides. The yard was chaos and debris, footprints, gun casings, a rifle half submerged in mud. But no people, no Walter. She called softly, "Walter?" No answer. The only reply came from the wind moving across the empty ranch. Evelyn went still. Then, far off, she heard sirens, faint, winding through the canyon roads. Red and blue lights reflected faintly on the distant hills. She hurried back down the ladder. "Don't be afraid. It's almost over." The children's faces turned up to her, streaked with dirt and tears. Outside, the sirens grew louder, closer. A helicopter beam cut through the trees, scanning the open fields. Someone must have called for help, probably Walter before the fighting started. Evelyn clutched Chloe's hand. "When they find us, we tell them everything." Ethan frowned. "Everything about the well, too?" "Yes," she said. "Can't hide the truth anymore." The ground trembled one last time, faintly, like the ranch itself exhaled. Then the sound faded, leaving only the slow rhythm of rain on the boards above them. Minutes later, voices called out. Flashlights cut through the darkness. Hands reached down, pulling them into the stormy light. They climbed out one by one, soaked, shivering, alive. The police swarmed the property, shouting orders, securing the area. Evelyn turned, searching the faces for Walter. But he was gone. Only his rifle lay in the mud beside the porch. Christopher Harrington's SUV sat wrecked against the far fence, the driver's door open and empty. Blood streaked down the fender, rain washing it into the dirt. A deputy touched Evelyn's shoulder gently. "Ma'am, you're safe now." She looked back toward the well. Steam rose faintly from it, curling upward, vanishing into the storm. Safe. For now. In the glare of flashing lights, Evelyn's eyes reflected nothing but resolve. She held the locket tight against her chest as the first light of dawn broke beyond the misty hills. Tomorrow, they'd dig deeper. They'd find the truth about what had been buried in Red Hollow Ranch, and who else it had claimed. By sunrise, The storm had cleared. The Red Hollow Ranch stretched beneath a fragile pink sky, its scars revealed in the early light. Broken boards, scattered casings, deep tracks in the mud. The silence felt unnatural, heavy with the memory of the night before. Evelyn stood outside the house, wrapped in a blanket one of the deputies had given her. She hadn't slept. None of them had. The well was now surrounded by yellow tape and mirrored vests. Officers took photos, speaking in low voices. One dropped something into a plastic bag, a piece of cloth dark with mud and dried blood. Another knelt to examine the strange carvings on the stones. Evelyn watched, unmoving. A young detective approached. "Mrs. Parker, I'm Detective Morales with Sedona PD. We're going to need your statement again, just to clarify what happened." She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've told you everything." Morales looked skeptical but kind. "And this?" "Christopher Harrington. You're certain he came here armed with others?" "Yes, you'll find tire tracks, bullet holes, everything." "And your neighbor?" "Mr. Briggs." Evelyn hesitated. Her eyes drifted toward the driveway, where Walter's old truck still sat abandoned. "He helped us. I don't know what happened to him after." The detective scribbled something in his notebook. "We'll keep looking. For now, maybe you and your family should go stay in town." Evelyn shook her head. "No, we're not leaving. Not until I know what's in there." Her gaze fixed on the old well. Something about it felt alive, restless, as if it still held its breath under the weight of its secrets. Later that day, while the police continued their search, Evelyn found a narrow door near the back of the barn, half hidden behind a wall of tools. It opened to a short staircase that led underground. The air that came out was damp, metallic, and old. She hesitated, then turned on her flashlight and stepped down. The passage led to a small brick room filled with filing cabinets, half-collapsed shelves, and stacks of moldy papers. Words leapt from torn documents. "Deed transfer confidential. Property claim 1989I." She wiped grime from one folder and froze when she saw a familiar name, Jonathan Parker. Hands shaking, she pulled it open. Inside were letters, contracts, and a folded map of the region. Red circles marked properties across the valley, all labeled with initials, H and Co. Among the pages was a letter, handwritten, dated 2002, the year Jonathan died. "Jonathan, it's bigger than you think. They've been altering deeds for decades. Some of the bodies are here under the ranch. Leonard knows he wants to come clean, but Christopher won't let him. Be careful. W.B." Evelyn's breath caught. W.B. Walter Briggs. Her chest tightened. He had known her husband. He had tried to warn him. Footsteps echoed behind her. She wheeled around, heart hammering. But when she raised the flashlight, no one was there. The sound came again, faint, dragging, like a shoe scraping stone. She raised the light toward the corner of the room. A dark corridor stretched beyond, half collapsed, leading toward the well's direction. She stepped closer. The beam caught something glinting on the ground, brass buttons from a jacket. Walter's jacket. "Walter." Her voice was a whisper swallowed by the walls. "Are you there?" The air grew colder. Her flashlight flickered. Once, twice. Then the faintest sound drifted through the passage. A voice, weak but human. "Evelyn!" She ran forward, ducking branches and beams until the tunnel widened to a chamber lined with stone. In the middle, beneath a shaft of light breaking through the cracked ground above, lay Walter, pale, bruised, alive but barely. He opened one eye when she knelt beside him. "I told you, stay away from that well." "What happened?" she whispered. "Christopher tried to throw me in, thought I was dead." He coughed. "He found something down there, Evelyn. Something not meant to see daylight." Evelyn looked around. On the far wall, chains hung rusted into stone. Beneath them, bones. Dozens. Not poured in like a grave, but arranged, deliberate, as if someone had hidden evidence long ago and sealed it under the ranch. She swallowed hard, then pulled one paper from Walter's coat pocket. It was another letter, written in an old, trembling hand. "To whoever finds this, I cannot die with what I've done. I tried to stop my nephew, but fear kept me silent. The well holds more than sin, it holds truth. Leonard Harrington. Evelyn stared at the note, her heart racing. Everything she'd feared about Jonathan's death was right, but this was bigger. Christopher hadn't just killed her husband. He'd buried him with others who threatened to expose the family's crimes. Above them, the muffled sound of approaching engines broke the silence. Evelyn looked up, recognizing the aggressive hum. Not police. Not rescue. Christopher had returned. She helped Walter to his feet, his body trembling. "We need to move. Now." They made their way back toward the barn entrance, emerging into the fading light of evening. Smoke rose from the distant hills, Christopher setting fires to destroy evidence. The police cars were gone, diverted by false reports. "He's stalling them," Walter said, coughing, trying to erase what's left. Evelyn's hands tightened around the letter. Then he fails. That night, as stars broke through the smoke, she gathered her surviving strength. She hid the documents, letters, and map in a sealed box under the floorboards of the house. She would take them to the authorities at dawn, but before she slept, something inside her needed to say goodbye. She walked to the well one last time. The air above it was calm now, the boards secure but damp. She placed her hand on them, whispering quietly, voice trembling. "Jonathan, I know the truth now." Wind rose softly across the ranch, brushing her hair back like a familiar hand. The earth beneath her feet seemed lighter, the constant hum finally subsiding. "I won't let them bury you again," she said. "Or anyone else." From the distance came the faint echo of sirens, but this time growing louder. Morning would bring the reckoning. The following morning rose clear and cold, with frost weaving thin lines across the broken windows of Red Hollow Ranch. For the first time in days, the silence outside wasn't heavy. It was waiting. The mist clung to the trees as Evelyn stood by the porch, clutching the sealed box that held letters, maps, and every secret the Harrington name had tried to bury. Walter sat wrapped in an old blanket near the fire, pale but alive. He nodded when she looked his way. "They'll come today," he said. "Once you show those papers, it's over." Evelyn shook her head. "Over? Not yet. People need to see what they did, what they took." Michael stepped forward. "Mom, maybe we should leave this place. It's not safe here." She smiled faintly. "Safety means nothing if we leave the truth behind." By mid-morning, 2 police cruisers pulled up the dirt road. Behind them came black SUVs with agency markings she didn't recognize. Federal agents stepped out, scanning the property, their expressions hard. The lead investigator, a woman with sharp eyes, introduced herself simply as Agent Rivera. Her tone carried no comfort, only resolve. She listened without interrupting as Evelyn told the full story, the letter of inheritance, the well, the bones, the documents underground, and the confessions signed by Leonard Harrington himself. Rivera signaled to her team, and within minutes the investigators spread across the land. They moved like surgeons working through a wound. They unearthed chains, dug shallow graves, and photographed every inch of the old well. When one of them shouted that they'd found something deeper, the others rushed in. From the depths came what none of them expected: uniform fragments, identification tags, and bones consistent with multiple victims buried at different times. The Valley of Harrington had kept its secrets for decades under the silence of money and fear. Rivera turned to Evelyn. "You've done something most wouldn't dare. You've ended a dynasty that bought silence with blood." Evelyn looked toward the mountains. "Justice isn't ended. It's started." By evening, news crews gathered along the dirt road. Their cameras panned across flashing lights, the old house, and the well now surrounded by investigators in white suits. Across Arizona and beyond, the story spread of a widow who uncovered a crime family buried in the red earth. When the arrests came, they came fast. Christopher Harrington was found hiding in an old property near Cottonwood, injured and shaken. The evidence from the ranch left no room for denial. His prints matched the weapons, his name filled the falsified deeds, and his accounts led straight to decades of stolen land. He and his remaining accomplices were charged with murder, fraud, and conspiracy. Inside the house that night, Evelyn sat by the repaired fireplace, the flames soft but steady. Her children slept nearby, finally at peace. Walter sat beside her, his voice faint. "You did it," she nodded. "We did it." He looked toward the window, where the valley shimmered under moonlight. Leonard wanted to make things right in the end. Guess he picked the only person brave enough to finish what he started. Evelyn looked down at the locket still hanging from her neck. Jonathan always said the truth doesn't die, it just waits. Outside, the land was changing. Excavators would come the next week to remove debris. For the first time in years, the wind moved freely through the ranch without sounding like whispers. The ghosts of Red Hollow were finally at rest. Weeks later, Evelyn stood before a small crowd gathered at the ranch gates. The property had been cleaned but not rebuilt. Instead, the space where the main house once stood had become open ground, a place of remembrance. A wooden sign leaned against a new fence. The Red Hollow Community Center, in memory of those who were silenced. Neighbors, families, and volunteers from Flagstaff and Sedona filled the field with wildflower seeds. The town's mayor spoke of renewal, of what courage meant when one woman refused to look away. Evelyn stepped forward. "This land belonged to fear for too long," she said, her voice steady. "Now it belongs to hope, to those who lost their voices, and to those who will grow here again." Applause rose softly, more like gratitude than celebration. As weeks passed, the ranch changed more each day. Emily began teaching art classes to local kids in a small renovated shed. Michael started a replanting project across the lower fields. The twins repaired old fences and built benches under the mesquite trees. And Chloe, with her small hands, planted flowers around the sealed well, marigolds, her favorite. One evening, Evelyn walked alone to the memorial at sunset. The light turned the mountains gold. The air smelled of cedar and soil. She knelt near the well, tracing her fingertips over the plaque newly placed beside it. In remembrance of those lost to silence, may their truth live on. A calm wind rose across the valley. For the first time, she didn't hear crying or whispers, only the sound of leaves and birds returning after the long quiet. She closed her eyes and felt the warmth of the setting sun against her face. "I did it, Jonathan," she murmured. "We're free." Behind her, Walter's voice rose, quiet but firm. "Justice finally came to the mountains of Arizona," she smiled. As the last bit of daylight faded, Evelyn stood and looked one final time at the valley, knowing that Red Hollow Ranch was no longer a place of death. It was something new, a haven for the living built on truth. The ghosts were gone, but their memories had transformed, no longer bound by tragedy, but honored in reclamation. The wind shifted, carrying a faint warmth through the trees, almost like a breath of peace. The well stayed silent. The valley lived again,